The roast beef sat in the center of the table, steam curling upward in thin wisps that caught the candlelight. Evan Blake watched his daughter Chloe reach for another dinner roll, her small fingers struggling with the tongs. Outside, snow fell against the windows in soft patterns, muffling the world beyond their modest home. New Year's Eve had arrived quietly, the way most things did in their corner Wisconsin. "Careful with those, sweetheart," Evan said, guiding her hand. Chloe smiled up at him, gap-toothed and bright. Across the table, his son Liam pushed green beans around his plate, building small mountains with his fork. The boy had been quiet all evening, but that wasn't unusual. At 9 years old, Liam had learned to read runes the way some kids read books. Evan's wife, Renee, emerged from the kitchen carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, strands escaping around her face. She looked tired. She always looked tired these days. "Everything smells wonderful," Evan said, trying to catch her eye. She offered a quick smile, but didn't quite look at him. Instead, her gaze flicked toward the dining room entrance where her mother stood, arms crossed, surveying the table like a health inspector at a failing restaurant. Gloria Turner had arrived 3 hours earlier with 2 suitcases and a critical eye. She wore a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than Evan made in a week, and her silver hair was styled in a way that suggested she'd just left the salon. Everything about Gloria screamed maintenance and control. "The roast is dry, Renee," Gloria said, settling into her chair. She cut a small piece of meat and held it up to the light as if examining evidence. "You used too much salt again." Renee laughed, but the sound came out nervous and thin. "Mom, it's fine. Everyone likes it. I'm just being honest, dear. You asked me to visit, so I'm helping." Gloria placed the meat back on her plate untouched. "If you're going to serve beef, at least make it edible." Evan felt his jaw tighten. He counted to 3, then reached for the serving fork. "I think it's perfect," he said evenly. "Best roast we've had all year." Gloria's eyes shifted to him, cold and measuring. "Of course you'd say that. You eat anything." "Mom," Renee started, but Gloria waved her off. "Real men don't let their wives work 2 jobs, you know." Gloria took a sip of water, her lipstick leaving a perfect mark on a glass rim. "Back in my day, a husband provided. The wife stayed home and made a proper life for the family." The table went quiet except for the scrape of Liam's fork against his plate. Evan set down his knife carefully, precisely, placing it parallel to his plate's edge. He could feel his son watching him. "Renee works because she wants to," Evan said. His voice stayed level, controlled. "She's good at what she does, and she enjoys it." Gloria snorted softly. "Or maybe she has to. Someone's got to keep this house running." The words hung in the air like smoke. Renee stared at her plate, her knuckles white around her fork. She didn't speak. She didn't defend him. She just sat there, shrinking into herself the way she always did when her mother visited. Evan looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw the girl she must have been growing up under Gloria's roof. Small, apologetic, trained to accept every cutting word as truth. "Dad makes good money," Liam said suddenly. His voice was quiet but firm. "He fixes things. People call him all the time." Gloria turned her attention to the boy, and Evan saw his son stiffen under her gaze. "Adults are talking, Liam. Eat your dinner." "He's right, though," Evan said. "I run my own repair business." "We do just fine. Just fine," Gloria repeated, as if tasting the words and finding them sour. How lovely. Renee could have married a doctor, a lawyer, someone with ambition. Instead, she settled for a handyman with grease under his fingernails. Renee finally spoke. "Evan's a good father, a good husband," but she said it quietly, like an apology rather than a defense. Gloria smiled, having already won whatever battle she'd been fighting. Evan returned to his meal, cutting his meat with deliberate slowness. The roast wasn't dry. It was tender and perfectly seasoned, the result of 3 hours of careful preparation. But that didn't matter. Gloria's opinion had been delivered, and Renee had accepted it without question, the way she accepted everything her mother said. The rest of dinner passed in strained politeness. Chloe chattered about preschool, oblivious to the tension. Liam stayed quiet, glancing between his father and grandmother like a spectator at a tennis match. Evan answered questions when asked, kept his responses brief, and tried to ignore the way Gloria scrutinized every word he spoke. By the time Renee brought out dessert, apple pie she'd baked that morning, Evan's neck ached from holding his shoulders rigid. He wanted this evening to end. He wanted Gloria to leave. But he knew she wouldn't. She never did, not quickly anyway. She always stayed long enough to leave marks. Chloe reached for her juice cup, her small hand unsteady. The cup tipped, spilling orange liquid across the white tablecloth in a spreading stain. Some of it splashed onto Gloria's cream sweater, leaving dark spots on the expensive fabric. The sound that came from Gloria's throat was pure fury. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. "You little." Her hand shot out before Evan could react. The slap connected with Chloe's cheek, sharp and precise, the crack echoing through the dining room. For a moment, everything stopped. The world narrowed to that single sound, that single image of his daughter's head snapping to the side, her eyes going wide with shock before filling with tears. Then Chloe began to cry, not the dramatic wailing of a tantrum, but the hiccuping sobs of genuine hurt and confusion. She touched her reddening cheek with trembling fingers, staring at her grandmother. Evan was out his chair before conscious thought kicked in. "Hey!" His voice came out harder than he'd intended, loud enough to make Chloe flinch. He forced himself to lower the volume, but not the intensity. "Don't you ever touch my kid again." Gloria's face flushed, but she didn't back down. "If you raised him better, I wouldn't have to. That child has no manners, no discipline. She needs to learn. She's 5 years old." Evan moved to Chloe, scooping her into his arms. She buried her face in his shoulder, her tears soaking through his shirt. It was an accident. Accidents happen when parents don't teach consequences. Gloria dabbed at her sweater with a napkin, her movements sharp and angry. "I'm trying to help, but you two are too soft to see it." Renee rushed between them, her hands raised as if physically separating two fighters. "Evan, please." She didn't mean it. "Mom, maybe you should." "Maybe I should what?" Gloria's eyes narrowed. "Apologize for trying to raise your children properly, for stepping in where you've clearly failed." Evan stared at his wife. Blood pounded in his ears, but he kept his voice steady. "She hit our daughter, Renee. She hit a 5-year-old for spilling juice." I know. Renee's voice cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but Evan couldn't tell if they were for Chloe or for the situation itself. "But she's my mother. Please don't make a scene." The words landed like a physical blow. Evan held his daughter tighter, feeling her rapid heartbeat against his chest. "Don't make a scene," he repeated. "Are you serious right now?" A small voice spoke from the corner of the room. "Grandma told me not to tell anyone what she did to Mommy when she was little." Everyone turned to look at Liam. The boy sat very still in his chair, his dinner forgotten, his face pale but determined. He looked older than 9 in that moment, carrying knowledge that children shouldn't have to carry. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Chloe's crying faded to sniffles. Gloria's expression froze, her mouth forming a thin line. Renee's face drained of all color, and her hands dropped to her sides. "Liam," Gloria's voice came out sharp as broken glass. "That's enough." But Liam didn't look away. He kept his eyes on his father. "She told me last Christmas. She said families keep secrets, and I should keep this one." Evan's mind raced, connecting dots he'd refused to see before. The way Renee flinched when Gloria raised her voice. The way she never disagreed with her mother, no matter how unreasonable the demand. The nightmares Renee sometimes had, waking up gasping in the dark. He looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw decades of conditioning staring back at him. "Renee," he said quietly, "is that true?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted to her mother, seeking some kind of permission or guidance. Gloria's expression was stone, offering neither. "We should talk about this later," Renee finally whispered. "Not in front of the children." "The children are already in front of it," Evan said. "That's the problem." Gloria straightened her spine, gathering her composure like armor. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Children exaggerate. They misunderstand adult conversations." "Do they?" Evan shifted Chloe to his other arm. She'd gone quiet now, listening. Because my son seems pretty clear about what you told him. Your son is 9. He doesn't understand family dynamics or how discipline works. Gloria moved toward the door, grabbing her purse from the side table. I came here to spend the holiday with my daughter and grandchildren, and this is the thanks I get. Accusations and theatrics. You hit a child, Evans said flatly. There's no misunderstanding that. Gloria paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame. When she turned back, her expression had shifted into something colder, more calculated. Renee, are you going to let him speak to me this way? I'm your mother. Renee stood frozen between them, tears streaming down her face. Her mouth opened and closed, words forming and dying before they could be spoken. Evan watched her struggle, watched her try to choose, and felt something crack inside his chest when he realized she couldn't. I need some air, Renee finally said, and fled toward the bedroom. Gloria smiled, a small satisfied curve of her lips. That's what I thought. She looked at Evan, her eyes triumphant. You'll never understand the bond between mother and daughter. Renee knows where her loyalty belongs. She left then, retrieving her coat and heading out the front door without another word. The house fell silent except for the tick of the kitchen clock and Liam's quiet breathing. Evan stood in the middle of the dining room, holding his daughter, and tried to process what had just happened. The candles on the table had burned down to stubs. The roast sat congealing on its platter. Their New Year's Eve dinner lay abandoned, ruined by truths that had been hiding beneath the surface all along. Is Mommy okay? Chloe asked, her voice small against his shoulder. I don't know, baby, Evan answered honestly. I don't know. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Evan found Renee sitting on their bed with her knees pulled to her chest. She'd changed into pajamas but hadn't turned on any lights. In the darkness, she looked like a ghost of herself. He sat down beside her, keeping space between them. Outside, fireworks began popping in the distance as neighbors celebrated the new year. Each burst of sound made Renee flinch. We need to talk, Evan said. I know. Her voice was raw from crying. Is it true? What Liam said? Renee was quiet for so long that Evan thought she might not answer. Then, very softly, she spoke. She used to slap me when I talked back, or when I got bad grades, or when I embarrassed her in public. It was just discipline. That's what she called it. Evan's hands clenched into fists on his thighs. He forced them to relax. That's not discipline. That's abuse. Don't say that. Renee's voice rose slightly. She did the best she could. Raising me alone after Dad left was hard. She had her own issues to deal with, and she took them out on you. You don't understand what it was like. Renee finally looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. She sacrificed everything for me, put me through school, made sure I had opportunities. She has high standards. She wants the best. She hit our daughter tonight, Evan said, keeping his voice level despite the anger burning in his chest. She put her hands on Chloe in anger. That's not high standards. That's the same thing she did to you. It was one time. Chloe will be fine. Will she? Evan turned to face his wife fully. Or will she grow up thinking that's normal? That it's okay for people who love you to hurt you when you make mistakes? Renee's face crumpled. I defended her, she whispered. I defended her instead of my own child. What kind of mother does that make me? The kind who's still scared of her own mother. Evan reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. Renee, this has to stop. She hit our daughter, and you defended her. Again. This keeps happening. What do you mean, again? Last Thanksgiving, she made Liam cry because he couldn't finish his vegetables. You told him to apologize to her. 3 months ago, she criticized Chloe's artwork and reduced her to tears. You took the drawing down from the fridge. Every time your mother comes here, she hurts someone, and you choose her side. Renee pulled her hand away. That's not fair. You're making it sound like I don't care about our kids. I'm saying you don't stand up for them. Or for me. Or for yourself. Evan ran his hands through his hair, exhaustion settling into his bones. She controls you, Renee. Even when she's not here, you're worried about what she'd think or say. You make decisions based on her approval instead of what's right for our family. She's my mother. Renee's voice cracked. You don't understand what it's like with her. If I go against her, she'll disown me. She'll cut me off completely. I'll lose her. Then let her. The words came out harder than Evan intended, but he didn't take them back. Because one day, she'll destroy you too. She'll take everything. Your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your sense of self, and twist it all until you don't recognize yourself anymore. Renee stood up abruptly, wrapping her arms around herself. You're making this worse. You're trying to make me choose. I'm trying to save our family. No, she said, her voice rising. You're trying to control me, just like she does. Both of you pulling at me from different sides until I break. The accusation hit Evan like cold water. He stood slowly, trying to find words that would make her understand. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect our children from someone who hurt you and will hurt them too. She's getting old, Renee said, her tone shifting to pleading. She won't be around forever. Can't you just tolerate her? For my sake, tolerate her hitting our daughter? It won't happen again. I'll talk to her. You've said that before. Evan moved toward the door, needing distance before he said something he'd regret. Every time she crosses a line, you promise it won't happen again. But it always does because you never actually set boundaries. You just apologize on her behalf and hope everyone forgets. Where are you going? To check on the kids. You pause at the doorway, turning back. Think about what kind of life you want them to have. One where they learn to stand up for themselves, or one where they learn to accept abuse because it comes from family. It's not abuse, Renee said, but her voice had lost its conviction. Keep telling yourself that. Evan replied quietly. Maybe one day you'll believe it. He left her there in the dark and went to his children's rooms. Chloe was asleep, one hand curled beneath her cheek where a faint red mark still showed. Evan stood beside her bed for a long time, watching her breathe, feeling rage and helplessness war inside him. In his room, Liam was still awake, staring at the ceiling. Hey, buddy, Evan said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. You should be asleep. I heard you and Mom fighting. We were talking, not fighting. Liam gave him a look that said he knew better. Is it my fault? Because I said what Grandma told me. No. Evan put his hand on his son's shoulder. You did the right thing. Keeping bad secrets doesn't help anyone. But now Mom's mad. Mom's not mad at you. She's confused and hurting, and she's trying to figure some things out. Evan squeezed gently. Sometimes grown-ups have to deal with hard stuff from when they were kids. Your mom's doing that right now. Liam was quiet for a moment. Then, Grandma scares me sometimes. Yeah, Evan said, his throat tight. Me too. Will she come back? I don't know. He wished he could promise otherwise, but Renee's tears and desperate pleading told him the truth. Gloria would be back. She always came back because Renee couldn't cut the cord that bound them. But if she does, I need you to promise me something. What? If she ever makes you uncomfortable or says something that doesn't feel right, you tell me immediately. No matter what she says about keeping secrets. Okay. Liam nodded seriously. Okay, Dad. Good boy. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new year. Fresh start. But as Evan left his son's room and stood in the hallway, listening to the muffled sound of Renee crying through their bedroom door, he knew nothing was starting fresh. This was just the beginning of something breaking, and he wasn't sure if it could be fixed. Outside, someone set off a string of firecrackers. The sharp pops echoed through the quiet neighborhood, marking the moment 1 year became another. Evan closed his eyes and tried to remember what hope felt like. 3 weeks passed. Gloria returned on a Tuesday afternoon with a suitcase and a story about her furnace breaking down. Evan came home from a job site to find her bags in the hallway, coat already hung on a rack like she'd never left. He stood in the doorway, grease still on his hands from working on an industrial boiler, and stared at those bags. Navy blue with silver handles. Expensive, like everything Gloria owned. Surprise! Renee emerged from the kitchen, her smile too bright, too forced. Mom's furnace went out. She needs a place to stay, just until it gets fixed. A few days, maybe a week. Evan looked at his wife, then at the bags, then back at his wife. You didn't think to call me first? It's an emergency. I couldn't just leave her in the cold. She has money. She could have stayed at a hotel. Renee's smile faltered. She's my mother, Evan. I'm not sending her to a hotel. Gloria appeared at the top of the stairs, having apparently already claimed the guest room. She wore a silk robe that probably cost more than their monthly mortgage and looked down at them with the air of a queen surveying her subjects. "Evan," she said, nodding once. "I hope my presence won't be too much of an inconvenience." Everything about her tone suggested she didn't care if it was. "Of course not," Renee said quickly, before Evan could respond. "You're always welcome here." Evan walked past both of them without a word, heading for the bathroom to wash up. He scrubbed his hands harder than necessary, watching the water run dark with grime. In the mirror, his reflection looked tired. Older than 36 should look. When he emerged, Renee was waiting in the hallway. "Don't," she said softly. "Please don't start something. I haven't said anything. I can see it on your face. You're angry. You invited her back without asking me. After what happened on New Year's." Evan kept his voice low, aware that Gloria could probably hear them from the guest room. "After she hit Chloe, she apologized. To you, maybe. Not to our daughter." Renee's jaw tightened. "She's going through a hard time. Her house is freezing. She's worried about money. She lives in a 3-bedroom house she owns outright and has enough in savings to retire comfortably. Don't sell me her sob story. Why do you hate her so much?" The question caught Evan off guard. He studied his wife's face, looking for any sign that she was joking. She wasn't. She genuinely couldn't see it. "I don't hate her," he said finally. "I hate what she does to you. To us. Every time she's here, you become someone else. Someone smaller. That's not true, isn't it?" He gestured toward the stairs. "How long did it take you to invite her in? 5 minutes? Did you even consider saying no?" Renee's eyes filled with tears. "I can't turn her away. She's family. So are we." Evan turned and headed for their bedroom, done with the conversation. "Just tell me how long she's staying. I need to know how long I have to keep my mouth shut." He closed the door before Renee could answer. Dinner that night was a repeat performance of New Year's Eve. Gloria critiqued the chicken, too dry. The vegetables, overcooked. The table setting, sloppy. She questioned why they didn't have wine with dinner, then criticized their choice when Renee pulled out a bottle from the pantry. "Box wine," Gloria said, examining the label with distaste. "How economical." Evan cut his chicken methodically, each slice precise. He didn't look up. He didn't engage. He just ate his food and tried to pretend he was anywhere else. "Evan fixed the Johnson's heater today," Renee offered, trying to fill the silence. They were really grateful. "How nice," Gloria said. "Manual labor. How fulfilling that must be." Liam set down his fork with a clatter. "Dad helps people. That's better than just sitting around criticizing everyone." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Evan looked at his son, saw the defiance in the boy's eyes, and felt a mix of pride and terror. Gloria's face hardened. "Liam, apologize." "Why?" "It's true." "Liam," Renee started, but Evan held up a hand. "He's allowed to have an opinion," Evan said calmly. "He's a child," Gloria snapped. "Children don't speak to their elders that way. Maybe elders should earn respect instead of demanding it." The words came out before Evan could stop them. So much for keeping his mouth shut. Gloria stood abruptly. "I will not be disrespected in this house." "It's my house," Evan said, still calm, still cutting his chicken. "Technically, my name's on the mortgage." "Evan," Renee looked horrified. "Apologize? For what?" Stating a fact. Renee pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. "Mom, I'm so sorry. He's just tired from work. He doesn't mean it. Don't apologize for me," Evan said. "Someone has to. You're being cruel." Evan set down his knife and fork, finally looking up at his wife. "I'm being honest. There's a difference." Gloria gathered her dignity like a cloak. "I can see when I'm not wanted. I'll pack my things." "Mom, no. Let her go," Evan said quietly. Renee whirled on him. "Stop it. Just stop. Can't you be civil for 1 week? 1 single week?" "I've been civil. I said hello. I haven't yelled. I haven't made any scenes. I've just sat here and eaten dinner while your mother insults everything about my life." "She's not insulting you." "Yes, she is." Evan stood now, kneading the ground beneath him to feel solid. "She's been doing it since the moment she arrived. And you let her, because you always let her. This is my house, too. I get to decide who stays here." "You're right. Evan said. It is. So decide. But know that every day she's here is another day I have to watch her tear you down. Another day our kids learn that this is what family looks like. He left the table, left them all there, and went out to the garage. His workshop was cold, the concrete floor seeping chill through his shoes, but at least it was quiet. At least here, no one criticized his choices or made him feel like his life was insufficient. He picked up a wrench, examined a carburetor he'd been meaning to rebuild, then set it back down. His hands were shaking, not from cold, but from the effort of holding everything in. The garage door opened. Liam slipped through, closing it quietly behind him. You okay, Dad? Yeah, buddy. Just needed some air. Liam came and stood next to him, looking at the workbench cluttered with tools and projects. I don't like when you and Mom fight. I know. I don't like it either. Why does Grandma have to stay here? Because your mom can't say no to her. Why not? Evan looked down at his son, at the honest confusion in the boy's face, and wished he had a simple answer. Sometimes people we love hurt us, and we keep letting them because we're afraid of what happens if we stop. Your mom's afraid that if she stands up to Grandma, she'll lose her. But Grandma's mean. Yeah, Evan agreed. She is. Then why doesn't Mom see it? She does. She just doesn't want to admit it. Admitting it means facing something she's been running from her whole life. Liam thought about this for a moment. Will you and Mom get divorced? The question drove into Evan's chest like a blade. I don't know, he answered honestly. I hope not. But some things are hard to fix once they're broken. I don't want you to leave. Hey, Evan crouched down, putting himself at eye level with his son. Whatever happens, you and Chloe are my priority. Always. That doesn't change. Liam nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Can I stay out here with you for a while? Sure, buddy. Pull up a stool. They sat together in the cold garage, not really working on anything, just existing in the same space. Through the garage door, Evan could hear raised voices from the house, Renee and Gloria arguing about something. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Renee was crying. Gloria was lecturing. Dad, Liam asked after a while. Yeah. When I grow up, I'm never going to let anyone make my wife cry. Evan looked at his son and saw a future taking shape, built on lessons learned from watching his parents' marriage strain and crack. Good, he said quietly. That's good. Days turned into a week. Gloria's furnace remained mysteriously unfixed despite Evan's offer to take a look at it himself. The guest room became her domain, transformed with her belongings until it felt like a different house existed within theirs. Evan started staying late at job sites. Anything to avoid coming home to the constant criticism, the way Gloria's presence poisoned every interaction. He'd arrive after the kids were in bed, eat cold leftovers alone in the kitchen, then retreat to the garage or the bedroom, depending on whether Renee was speaking to him that day. Their marriage had devolved into carefully choreographed avoidance. Renee stopped defending him, but she also stopped asking him to apologize. They existed in parallel, two people occupying the same space without truly connecting. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Evan had finished a big commercial job early and decided to come home for dinner, hoping that maybe they could have one normal evening. One meal that didn't feel like navigating a minefield. He walked in to find Gloria on the phone in the living room, her voice low but intense. She didn't notice him at first, too focused on her conversation. I'm telling you, Linda, he's going to leave her, Gloria was saying. It's only a matter of time. The way he looks at me, the disrespect, he's planning something. I can feel it. Evan froze in the doorway, grocery bag still in hand. Gloria continued, oblivious. But I've been preparing. I talked Renee into putting my name on the house title last year. Just for tax purposes, I told her. She signed the papers without even reading them. If he leaves, I'll make sure she gets everything. The house, the kids, whatever money he's squirreled away. Men like him think they can just walk away. Not on my watch. Something cold settled in Evan's chest. Something beyond anger, beyond hurt. A clarity that came from finally understanding the full scope of what he was dealing with. He stepped fully into the room. Planning something. Gloria? She spun around. Phone still pressed her ear. For just a moment, Genuine surprise crossed her face before her expression smoothed into its usual mask of superiority. Linda, I'll call you back. She ended the call without waiting for a response. Evan, I didn't hear you come in. Clearly. He set the grocery bag on the side table with deliberate care. So you put your name on our house title? I have no idea what you're talking about. I was standing right there. I heard every word. Gloria's eyes narrowed. You're eavesdropping now? How mature? When did this happen? When did you convince Renee to sign papers she didn't understand? I did no such thing. You're being paranoid. Evan pulled out his phone, opened the voice recording app, and held it up. Want to repeat that? I'd love to have it on record. You can't scare me, Gloria said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. Renee trusts me. She knows I only want what's best for her. You want control. There's a difference. And you want to isolate her from her own mother. Turn her against me because you can't handle a strong woman in your life. No, Evan said quietly. I want my wife to be free from someone who's been manipulating her since childhood. Someone who hits children and forges legal documents. I didn't forge anything. She signed them willingly. After you lied about what they were for. Gloria took a step closer, her face flushed with anger. You'll never win this. Renee will always choose me over you. I'm her mother. Blood is thicker than whatever pathetic connection you think you have with her. You're right, Evan said, surprising them both. She will probably choose you. She's been programmed to choose you her entire life. But you know what? I'm done fighting for someone who won't fight for herself. Or for our kids. He turned and headed for the stairs. Where are you going? Gloria called after him. To pack, Evan said without looking back. And to call a lawyer. He found Renee in their bedroom, folding laundry. She looked up when he entered, saw his face, and went pale. What happened? Did you put your mother's name on the house title? The question came out flat, emotionless. Renee's hands stilled on the shirt she'd been folding. It was just for tax purposes. She said it would help with. When? Last year. February, I think. She said we could save money on property taxes if. That's not how property taxes work, Renee. I know, she sounded so sure and I thought. Renee's voice trailed off. Oh God, she lied to me. Yeah. Evan moved to the closet, pulling out his duffel bag. She's been planning for me to leave, positioning herself to take everything when I do. You're not. You can't leave. Evan, wait. Let me talk to her. Let me fix this. You can't fix this. The words came out louder than he'd intended. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. Every time she crosses a line, you say you'll fix it, but you never do. You just smooth things over and pretend it didn't happen. And she keeps pushing further because there are no consequences. She's my mother, and I'm your husband, the father of your children. When do we matter more than her feelings? Renee sank onto the bed, the laundry forgotten. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to choose. Then I'll make it easy for you. Evan zipped the duffel bag closed. I choose me. I choose our kids. I choose a life where we're not constantly walking on eggshells around someone who's supposed to love us. Where are you going? Hotel tonight. Tomorrow I'll figure out something more permanent. The kids are coming with me. Evan picked up the bag. Pack their things. We're leaving in an hour. You can't take my children. Gloria's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, arms crossed, looking triumphant despite the situation. The courts will never allow that. A father taking children from their mother? Please, watch me, Evan said. He walked past her, went to Liam's room, and started pulling clothes from drawers. Liam sat on his bed, eyes wide. We're going on a trip, buddy. Pack your favorite stuff. Where are we going? Away from here. Just for a while. Liam didn't argue. He got up and started filling his backpack with books and toys. Smart kid. He understood more than anyone gave him credit for. Chloe was easier, still young enough that adventure sounded exciting rather than scary. Evan packed her bag while she chattered about hotels and swimming pools. By the time he returned to the master bedroom, Renee was crying. Not the quiet tears from before, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Gloria stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, looking at Evan with pure hatred. This is your fault, Gloria said. You're tearing this family apart. No, Evan replied, shouldering his bag and taking his children's hands. You did that a long time ago. I'm just refusing to keep pretending it's fine. He looked at Renee one last time. You know where to find me when you're ready to choose. If you're ever ready. Evan, please. But he was already walking away, his children beside him, heading toward the door and whatever uncertain future waited beyond it. Behind him, he could hear Gloria's voice, soothing and poisonous, telling Renee everything would be fine. They didn't need him anyway. The last thing Evan heard before closing the door was Renee's sobs, and underneath them, Gloria's quiet laugh of victory. The hotel room was small and smelled like industrial cleaner. 2 double beds with floral bedspreads, a TV bolted to the dresser, thin curtains that let in too much light from the parking lot. But it was quiet, and Gloria wasn't there, and that made it feel like a palace. Chloe had fallen asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the emotional upheaval, even if she didn't fully understand it. Liam lay in the other bed, awake, staring at the ceiling. Dad! His voice was small in the darkness. Yeah, buddy. Is this forever? Evan sat on the edge of his son's bed. I don't know yet. We're figuring things out. Mom chose Grandma. Mom's confused. She's been trained her whole life to put her mother first. Breaking that habit is hard. But we're her kids. We should matter more. Yeah, Evan agreed quietly. You should. Liam was silent for a long moment. Then, I'm glad we left. The words shouldn't have felt like relief, but they did. Evan squeezed his son's shoulder. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. But Evan didn't sleep that night. He sat at the small desk by the window, laptop open, researching lawyers and custody laws. His phone buzzed with texts from Renee, desperate, pleading messages that started with please come home and devolved into how could you do this to us? Nothing from her acknowledged what Gloria had done. Nothing recognized the years of manipulation. It was all about his leaving, his choice to break the family apart. He didn't respond. Instead, he called the one person he knew who could actually help, his old college roommate who'd gone into family law. Patrick Heller answered on the third ring, voice rough with sleep. Evan, it's 2 a.m. I need a lawyer. Jesus. Okay, tell me what happened. Evan laid it all out. The years of Gloria's control, the way Renee couldn't break free, the slap, and finally the revelation about the house title. Patrick listened without interrupting, and when Evan finished, there was a long silence. You have recordings of her admitting to the title situation? On my phone. From tonight. Good. Send them to me. I'll need to verify the actual deed documents, but if she fraudulently added her name through misrepresentation. Patrick's voice shifted into professional mode. This is messy, Evan. Real messy. But you might actually have a case. I don't want a case. I want my name removed from any association with that woman, and I want my kids safe from her. What about Renee? Evan looked across the room at his sleeping children. If she chooses to leave Gloria, I'm here. But I can't force her to see what she doesn't want to see. That's rough, man. I'm sorry. Can you help me or not? Yeah, I can help. Come by the office tomorrow at 10. Bring the kids if you need to. We'll figure something out. And Evan, yeah, document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. If this goes to court, you'll need a paper trail that shows you the stable parent. I'm a stable parent. I believe you, but you're going to have to prove it. They hung up, and Evan sat in the blue glow of his laptop screen, feeling the weight of everything that was coming. Custody battles, divorce proceedings, his children caught in the middle of decisions they shouldn't have to witness. But underneath the dread was something else, relief. For the first time in years, he wasn't wondering when Gloria would strike next. He wasn't watching his wife shrink under her mother's criticism. He wasn't teaching his children that love meant accepting abuse. He was free, even if freedom felt terrifying. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Renee. Mom says you're just trying to manipulate me, that you're turning the kids against her. Evan typed a response. I recorded everything she said tonight. About the house, about planning for a divorce. If you want to hear it, let me know. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, you recorded my mother without her knowledge? That's a violation of her privacy. He stared at the message, feeling something inside him go cold and final. Even now, Even faced with evidence of Gloria's manipulation, Renee was defending her. He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 3 months crawled by. Evan found a small rental house on the lake. Nothing fancy, but clean and bright with big windows overlooking the water. The kids adjusted better than he'd expected. Chloe loved having her own room with yellow walls. Liam seemed calmer, more like himself without the constant tension. Renee visited twice a week. Supervised visits arranged through Patrick's office. She came alone, without Gloria, and each time she looked more exhausted. Thinner. The light that had once drawn Evan to her seemed to be flickering out. "You look tired," he said during one visit, watching her help Chloe with a puzzle. "I am tired." She didn't look up. "I'm working 2 jobs, trying to manage the house, dealing with Mom." "She's still living with you?" Renee's hands stilled on the puzzle piece. Where else would she go? Her own house. The one with the supposedly broken furnace that I offered to fix months ago. She fixed it, but she's worried about me being alone. "You're not alone. You're controlled. Don't start." Renee's voice went sharp. "I came here to see my children, not to be judged." Evan backed off, but the pattern was clear. Every visit followed the same script. Renee would arrive, interact with the kids, deflect any conversation about Gloria or their situation, and leave looking more defeated than when she'd arrived. The preliminary custody hearing was scheduled for late March. Patrick was confident they had a strong case. Evan had documented everything. The recordings of Gloria's manipulations, screenshots of texts where Renee prioritized her mother's needs over the children's schedules, testimony from neighbors who'd witnessed Gloria's treatment of the family. "She's going to show up with an expensive lawyer," Patrick warned. "Gloria will, and she'll paint you as unstable, possibly dangerous. I've never hurt anyone in this family." "I know, but perception matters in court. We need to be prepared for her to twist everything." The hearing itself felt surreal. Evan sat at a table with Patrick, facing Renee and her attorney, some polished downtown lawyer that Gloria had probably paid for. Gloria herself sat in the gallery, dressed in an expensive suit, looking every inch the concerned grandmother. The judge was a woman in her 50s, stern-faced and no-nonsense. She reviewed the documents Patrick had submitted, occasionally glancing up at the parties involved. "Mr. Blake," she said finally, "you're seeking primary physical custody based on claims that your wife is unduly influenced by her mother. That's an unusual argument. With respect, Your Honor, it's not that unusual when you see the evidence." Patrick stood, clicking through a presentation on his laptop. "We have recordings of Mrs. Turner admitting to manipulating legal documents. Testimony regarding physical abuse of a minor child. Documentation of ongoing psychological control." Renee's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, these recordings were obtained without consent, which..." "Wisconsin is a one-party consent state," Patrick interrupted smoothly. Mr. Blake was party to the conversation. "The recordings are admissible." The judge held up a hand. "I'll determine admissibility. Play the first recording." Gloria's voice filled the courtroom. "I'm telling you, Linda, he's going to leave her. It's only a matter of time." Evan watched Renee as she heard her mother's words, saw the moment understanding crashed over her. Her face went white. Her hands clenched in her lap. Gloria sat rigid in the gallery, her expression frozen. The judge listened to the entire recording without expression. When it finished, she looked at Gloria. "Mrs. Turner, is this your voice? I was speaking in confidence to a friend. My words were taken out of context. They seem fairly clear in context. You admit to adding your name to property that doesn't belong to you through misrepresentation. I was protecting my daughter's interests. By committing fraud?" The judge's tone was sharp. "And there's also the matter of physical assault on a minor child, witnessed by multiple family members. I barely touched her. Children need discipline. Mrs. Turner, I recommend you stop talking before you incriminate yourself further." The proceedings continued for another hour. Character witnesses testified. Evan's employer, who spoke about his reliability and calm demeanor. A neighbor who'd seen Gloria berating Renee in the driveway. Liam's school counselor, who noted the boy had seemed happier since the separation. Renee's lawyer tried to paint Evan as controlling, but the evidence told a different story. Text messages showed him being supportive, accommodating, always prioritizing the children's needs. Meanwhile, Renee's messages were often apologetic, making excuses for canceling visits because Gloria needed something. When the judge finally called a recess, Renee approached Evan in the hallway outside the courtroom. Gloria tried to follow, but Patrick smoothly intercepted her. "I didn't know," Renee said, her voice barely audible. "About the house. About what she was planning. You have to believe me. Does it matter?" Evan asked quietly. "You signed papers without reading them because she told you to. That's the problem, Renee. You trust her more than you trust yourself. I'm trying to fix this. By bringing her to our custody hearing? By letting her pay for your lawyer so she can control your defense too." Renee's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what else to do. She's all I have. You have your children. Or you did." The words landed like a slap. Renee stepped back, and Evan saw the full weight of her choices finally settling on her shoulders. But it was too late for realizations. The damage was done. The judge returned with her decision an hour later. Primary physical custody is awarded to Evan Blake, with supervised visitation for Renee Blake to occur twice weekly. Gloria Turner is ordered to have no contact with the minor children pending further evaluation. A restraining order will be issued to this effect. Gloria shot to her feet. "You can't do that. They're my grandchildren. Mrs. Turner, sit down or you'll be held in contempt." The judge's voice was ice. "Your behavior demonstrates a pattern of manipulation and potential harm to these children. Until a full psychological evaluation can be completed, you will maintain zero contact." "This is ridiculous. Renee, tell her." But Renee was crying, her lawyer's hand on her arm, and couldn't speak. The judge continued. "Additionally, the matter of the fraudulent property title is being referred to the district attorney's office for investigation. Mrs. Turner, you should retain a criminal attorney." Gloria's face went purple with rage, but she said nothing else. Patrick gathered his papers, gave Evan a satisfied nod. "We won," Patrick murmured. "Clean sweep." But Evan felt no victory as he watched his wife sob in her mother's arms, as Gloria shot him a look of pure hatred across the courtroom. Winning felt hollow when it meant watching Renee crumble. Outside, Liam and Chloe waited with the babysitter Evan had arranged. When they saw him, both children ran over. "Can we go home now?" Chloe asked. "Yeah, baby, we can go home." As they walked to the car, Evan glanced back at the courthouse. Through the glass doors, he could see Renee and Gloria standing in the lobby. Gloria was talking intently, gesturing, no doubt spinning the loss into something that was Evan's fault. And Renee was listening, nodding, already being pulled back into the web she'd never really escaped. Some people, Evan thought, had to hit bottom before they could climb back up. He just hoped Renee's bottom wasn't so far down she couldn't find her way back. A year passed. Spring turned to summer, summer to fall, and fall to winter again. Evan's rental had become home. The kids had decorated their rooms. The fridge was covered with their artwork, and the house smelled like coffee and lived in comfort. Evan's business had grown. Without the constant stress of managing Gloria's presence, he found he had more energy, more focus. He hired an assistant, took on bigger contracts, started saving money for the first time in years. The kids thrived. Chloe started kindergarten and made friends easily, her sweet nature undiminished by the family upheaval. Liam joined Little League and discovered a talent for pitching. Both children still saw Renee twice a week, but the visits had become easier, less charged with tension. Renee herself had changed. The supervised visits had eventually transitioned to unsupervised, and Evan could see her trying, really trying, to be present with the kids without Gloria's influence. She'd gotten her own apartment, a small one-bedroom she could barely afford, and was working 3 jobs to make ends meet. Gloria had faced consequences. The DA had pursued charges for fraud related to the house title, and while she'd ultimately received probation rather than jail time, her reputation in their small town was shattered. She'd moved to Madison, an hour away, and from what Evan heard through the grapevine, she was bitter and isolated. Evan was in his workshop one December evening when Chloe called from the house. "Dad, someone's here." He set down the carburetor he'd been cleaning and walked to the front door. Renee stood on the porch, no coat despite the cold, arms wrapped around herself. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course." He made coffee while she sat at the kitchen table, silent. The kids had gone to their rooms without being asked, sensing their mother needed space. "I left her," Renee said finally. "Moved out of Mom's last month. Got my own place." "I heard. That's good. Is it?" She looked up, her eyes hollow. "Because I feel like I'm dying. Like I cut off a limb and I'm just bleeding out slowly." "That's called withdrawal," Evan said quietly. "From a lifetime of being controlled. She's my mother. She's your abuser. There's a difference." Renee flinched but didn't argue. "She's alone now. In Madison, in some apartment she hates. She calls me every day, crying, saying I abandoned her." "Do you answer?" "Sometimes. I know I shouldn't, but old habits." Evan poured the coffee, set a mug in front of her. "Why are you here, Renee?" "I wanted to ask." She stared into the mug. "Can we start over? Can we try again?" The question he'd been expecting for a year. Evan sat down across from her, taking his time to consider his response. "What will be different?" he asked finally. "I'm in therapy. Real therapy, not the kind Mom picked out. I'm learning about boundaries and trauma patterns, and—" She swallowed hard. "About how I let her abuse me, and how I let her abuse you and the kids." "That's good. That's important work." "But," Renee heard the hesitation in his voice, "but it doesn't change what happened. You chose her over us, repeatedly, for years. Even when she hit Chloe, even when she manipulated legal documents. You defended her until a judge forced you to see the truth." "I know." Tears spilled down Renee's cheeks. "I know what I did. I hate myself for it. But I'm trying to be better. Isn't that worth something?" "It's worth a lot," Evan said honestly. "But I'm not sure it's worth risking our kids' stability again. They're happy now. They're safe. They don't walk on eggshells or witness fights or learn that abuse is love. I wouldn't let her near them. I swear. You said that before. After New Year's." Then she moved in 3 weeks later. Renee closed her eyes, the truth of it undeniable. "You're right. You're right to not trust me." They sat in silence, the kitchen clock ticking, snow falling outside the window, and soft patterns that reminded Evan of that New Year's Eve that had changed everything. "I loved you," Renee said softly. "I still love you. But I understand if that's not enough anymore." "Love was never the problem," Evan replied. "The problem was that you loved her more, or feared her more. Either way, it added up to the same thing. And now you have to figure out who you are without her. What you want, what you believe, what you'll accept, and what you won't. And you have to do that work alone, without me or the kids as safety nets." Renee nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. "Can I still see them? The kids?" "Of course. They're your children. I'd never keep them from you. Just from you. Just from us as a family." Evan reached across the table, taking her hand briefly. "Maybe someday. If you really do the work, if you really break free. But not now. Not when you're still answering her calls and feeling guilty for having your own life." Renee stood, leaving her coffee untouched. "You're a better man than I deserved. I'm just a man who chose self-respect over hoping someone would change." She left quietly, and Evan stood at the window, watching her car pull away. Behind him, he heard small footsteps on the stairs. "Was that Mom?" Liam asked. "Yeah, buddy. Is she coming back? To live here?" "No." Liam was quiet for a moment. Then, "Good." Evan turned to look at his son, saw the relief on the boy's face, and understood that he'd made the right choice. Some people could change. Some people did the hard work and broke free from their patterns. But until Renee proved she was one of them, his job was to protect his children from the cycle continuing. One afternoon in January, a year and 2 months after leaving, Evan received a certified letter. His stomach dropped when he saw the return address, Gloria Turner's lawyer. Inside was a request for reconciliation, a formal letter asking to restore familial bonds and heal past wounds. Gloria wanted to see her grandchildren. She'd completed court-ordered therapy, paid restitution for the fraud charges, and was willing to do supervised visits. Evan read the letter twice, then walked to his fireplace. The logs were already burning, heat radiating into the living room. He held the letter over the flames, watching the paper catch and curl, ash floating upward. Dad! Liam had appeared in the doorway. What was that? Junk mail, Evan said. But Liam was too smart for that. Was it from Grandma? Evan considered lying, then decided his son deserved honesty. Yeah, she wants to see you and Chloe. Do we have to? No, not ever if you don't want to. Liam came and stood beside him, both of them watching the last corner of the letter blacken and disintegrate. Mom said Grandma's changed, that she's getting help. People say a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. Do you think she's changed? Evan thought about Gloria's cold eyes across the courtroom, her triumphant smile when Renee chose her over their family, the way she'd slapped Chloe without remorse. He thought about manipulation and control and decades of abuse hidden behind the word family. Some people don't change, he said finally. They just get better at hiding what they are. Will Mom ever come back? The question Liam had been asking for over a year. Evan put his arm around his son's shoulders. Maybe, he answered honestly, but not the same way. And maybe that's okay. Maybe what we have now is better than trying to force something that was broken beyond repair. Liam leaned into him, and they stood together watching the fire, the letter reduced to nothing but ash and memory. Outside, the lake was frozen solid, a sheet of white stretching to the horizon. Across its surface, a few brave souls ice-fished in the winter stillness, patient and waiting. The world was cold but clear, harsh but honest. And that, Evan thought, was something worth protecting.